3. It's a magic number. Yes, it is. It's a magic number. Because 2 times 3 is? 6. Excellent. And 3 times 6 is? 18. Excellent. And the 18th letter of the alphabet is? R. Yes. There are 3 R's that we're going to talk about today. Right? Now, they're not the 3 R's that Jack Johnson puts in the Curious George soundtrack, which are reduce, reuse, and recycle. Those are very important things to hold on to. But today, we're going to look at these 3 R's, to rejoice, request, and reflect. And we've been doing that already during the service. We began our service by rejoicing as we would sing praises to God and shout out to Him the things that we are thankful for. We began to lift our requests to the Lord. And so we brought our request to Him, and now we're going to spend some time to reflect. Reflect on what God is doing with us, how He's calling us in our lives, and where we can discover the peace of Christ that transcends our minds and it guards our hearts. And so before we begin to make that big transition from into Advent and the Christmas season, we're going to spend some time to rejoice, request, and reflect. So, Paul, he writes out to them, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Paul gives us one of the most difficult commands in the Bible. Rejoice. It's so important. He says it again. I will say it again. Rejoice. Now this word rejoice, if we look at N.T. Wright, he tells us that you can actually translate that word to celebrate. To celebrate. And Wright says to rejoice means something that happens inside people. A sense of joy welling up and making them happy from within. But for Paul, rejoicing would have meant public celebration, celebrating Jesus as Lord. And so, who doesn't like to celebrate? I know Monday night I wanted to celebrate. I was rejoicing as the Eagles beat the Chiefs. Right? But I wanted to have a public celebration. Of course, the game ended at 11, so I was publicly celebrated by going to bed. Right? But just a week or so ago, our youngest son, Henry, had his 10th birthday. And we rejoiced inside that Henry was 10. That's a great thing. But we also had a public celebration. We had a birthday party where our house was filled with a bunch of 9 and 10-year-olds running around being crazy. We posted out it on social media. We had a family party because it's something to celebrate. And my in-laws, they arrived for Thanksgiving the other day, and so we rejoiced. But tomorrow we are going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate together all the things that we are thankful for. Paul doesn't just say rejoice or celebrate. He says rejoice always. Always. It's easy to rejoice and to celebrate when things are going well, but rejoice always. When the diagnosis is cancer, we are to rejoice. When our bank accounts are empty, we're to rejoice. When people are speaking ill about us, we are to rejoice. When our in-laws come to visit, we're to rejoice. Over the past few months at Bar Mills, we've been looking at Jesus' Beatitudes. And one of the most difficult of those is the one where Jesus says, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness. So we think that we're supposed to rejoice when we're persecuted. In fact, Jesus says, you are blessed when they insult you, and they persecute you, and they falsely say every kind of evil against you because of me. Be glad and rejoice, because your reward is great in heaven. So we're to be glad and rejoice when they insult you, to be glad and rejoice when they persecute you, to be glad and rejoice when they're saying false things and evil things against you. We're supposed to be glad, to rejoice, and to celebrate. Yes, but we're not rejoicing in the bankruptcy or the diagnosis or the persecution. Paul says to be glad, to rejoice, to celebrate in the Lord. Right? To celebrate in the Lord as situations are going to come and go. Things may never be, they may get better or they may get worse. But you don't have to rejoice in the situation. You rejoice in the Lord. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. And the reason that we can rejoice, Paul tells us, is because the Lord is near. No matter the situations in our life, the Lord promises to be near us. In good times and in bad, the Lord is near. In sickness and in health, in healthy and in hurting, the Lord is near. When we're rich or when we're poor, the Lord is near. The God who created the universe, who forms everything, who formed you and me, is near. The God who came to earth and offered his life for us, he's near. The God who lives in us and guides us into truth is near. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again. Rejoice, because the Lord is near. And that takes us to the second R. How are we to rejoice? We do it through request. Paul says this: don't be anxious about anything. Now, Paul gives us one of the most difficult commands in the Bible. Don't be anxious about anything. And we could also translate it, don't worry about anything. And he's not the only one who tells us not to worry. You might be familiar with some of these other great prophets. We've got Bobby McFerrin, who tells us, don't worry, be happy. We've got Bob Marley, who says, don't worry about a thing. Every little thing's going to be all right. And we've even got Jesus, who says, don't worry about your life, what you will eat, or what you will wear. So Paul and Bobby and Bob and Jesus are all telling us not to worry. That's good. It's good advice, right? But we have to understand this word worry is really talking about us being pulled apart in different directions. You know, we've got our hopes and our dreams pulling us one way. We've got our fears and our doubts pulling us the other. And it feels like these things are going to rip us apart. As a parent, I have plenty of worries. Especially now, our older two are ending their time in high school over the next couple of years. And so they probably have their own worries and doubts and fears. But as a parent, I have my worries and fears about their future. You know, I'm hopeful and excited for their future, but I'm fearful and worried about their future. I know they've got exciting dreams and ideas, and I'm all for them, hoping that they will achieve the dreams. I also fear all the obstacles and burdens that will come along their journey. And so I'm worried and I'm anxious. Yet Paul and Bobby and Bob and Jesus tell us not to worry. Thankfully, Paul gives us a little bit more strategy. Instead of just saying, don't worry about it, he says, not just to worry about it, he says, don't be anxious about it, don't worry about it, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And so, don't worry, be happy would be kind of peppy. Paul would say, don't worry, present your request. It's not really as clever, but it's a bit more apropos, right? And so we're told to present our request to God. And he gives us 3 ways. He says, present your request by prayer, by petition, and with thanksgiving. Now, if I were a good Baptist preacher, I would have found a way to connect them all with the same letter, maybe 3 more R's. So we'd have 6 R's to talk about, but then we would get confused. Or here, he's got, prayer, petition, and maybe we can make another, figure out a P word for Thanksgiving. Or William Wearsby, and he translates them as adoration, supplication, and appreciation. So maybe we could switch that middle word with A. Alexa, what's another word for supplication? I did that earlier and thought I said suffocation. Another word is affixation. That's not where I'm going. Maybe. All right, well, let's think about these prayer, petition, and thanksgiving. Or prayer, when we think about prayer, we think of it as just a general term. We're just it includes like bringing our requests to God and offering Him petitions and thanksgiving. But the word we're really looking at is adoration. We're adoring God or praising Him or worshiping God. Wearsby suggests that when we find ourselves worrying, our first action ought to be to get alone with God and worship Him. Adoration is what is needed. We must see the greatness and majesty of God. We must realize that He is big enough to solve our problems. So the first thing we do when we find ourselves worrying is we spend time in worship and praise to God. To rejoice in the Lord, to celebrate Him. And it's with that heart of worship we begin to understand that God is infinitely greater. He's more wise, kinder, and more powerful than we can even imagine. And so we understand that. So we humble ourselves, we exalt Him, we lift Him up. And through worship, then we move to petition and thanksgiving. So we go to this idea of what does Paul mean by petition? Or a fancy word would be supplication, where we're bringing or sharing our request to God. We're bringing our needs to Him. We're telling God what we need. We're speaking out what is worrying us. We're casting our cares on the Lord. But we all know that God already knows what we're dealing with. He already knows how our needs and our desires. He knows more than we know. He knows more than we can understand. He understands that even at the times when we think we're bringing Him the things that we need, they aren't really what we need. But this act of petition is a chance really for us to free our thoughts and our minds from all that is keeping us trapped by anxiety. We bring our requests, we're taking those things that are holding us captive and we're giving them to God. And reminding ourselves that God has already given us all that we need. And out of bringing our petitions to God, it leads us into thanksgiving. And that's why we're here, right? We come, we praise God, we bring our petitions, and now, even before He answers them, we bring to Him our thanksgivings. We thank God not for how He's answered our prayers, but that He's there to listen. Not that He's there to solve our problems, but we can bring our thanksgivings knowing that He will never leave or forsake us. Even though we might not have everything we want, we know that He gives us everything we need. And so by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, we present our requests to God. And the promise is that we get everything we want, right? No, that's not the answer. The promise is that we bring our requests and that the peace of God will guard our hearts and our minds. That God's peace is there with us. And so now it moves us to that last of the 3 R's, to reflect. Or to to reflect on what God has done for you and for me. So we'll be doing tomorrow, I hope, as we're stuffing our faces, we'll also reflect and thank God for all that He's done. We remember His goodness and grace, and we think about these things, as Paul would tell us. And when we think about our worries, when we think about our struggles, we often then begin to form a downward spiral. I know I've been in plenty of downward spirals in my life. One negative thought leads to another, then to another. Then you find yourself in a sea of worry, not seeing any way to escape. But instead of Paul telling us, well, this is what you need to think about, or this is what you need to do, he gives a list of things to think about. He says to reflect on these things, to set your mind and heart on these things. He says whatever is true, think about that, or whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, whatever is excellent, and whatever is praiseworthy. Think about these things. So we think about what is true, not what feels true, but what is true. We think about what is noble, what is honest, what is honorable. We think about what is right and just and fair. We think about what is pure and unadulterated and untainted. We think about what is lovely and beautiful and dignified. We think about what is admirable and commendable. We think about what is excellent and of highest quality. We think about what is praiseworthy, what is that which is worthy to be exalted and worshipped. And of all these 8 qualities, all of them are only fully found in God and God alone. Only God is completely and wholly true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, and praiseworthy. And then these are the qualities that He shines out and we are to reflect into our world. Because God is our almighty and benevolent Creator who redeems and sustains us. So we're going to wrap it up because we're going to play for you one of my son's favorite songs. I think he's been waiting for it. This song, pretty much, maybe it's a kid's song, but what they do is this band, they take scripture and they put it to music. So this person, we're going to see if this works, all right? Hopefully it will. If it doesn't, I'll just back up a little bit. But as we think about it, just for a second, there we go. As we listen to it, I want you to do this. I want you to rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, because the Lord is near. And then to present your request to God by prayer and petition with thanksgiving. Then reflect. Reflect on what is true, what is noble, what is right, what is pure, what is lovely, what is admirable, what is excellent, and praiseworthy. And as we do that, the peace of God will guard our hearts and minds, and the God of peace will be with you.